Collins. Sean Kennedy.
Aye. Here.
Lisa Martin.
Here.
Rich Becker.
Here.
Mike Terabasi.
Here.
Michelle Woodruff. Here. I'm going to please stand.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So we will begin with the superintendent's update. Leah will add that there are a few items that we will not be discussing on the agenda due to weather, inclement weather, so we will move those to our next meeting.
What was that? Sorry.
There are a few items on the agenda that we will not be discussing this evening, just due to inclement weather, so we will be moving those to our next meeting.
Which items?
Do you want to list them all?
I think two.
No, there are a few items on the agenda, so we'll just, if we're skipping over them, just know that we're, it will move to another.
Understood. I think you said, yep.
Okay. Very quickly with respect to enrollment, the March 1st enrollment was 2,826 students. There was some shifting around, particularly in 12th grade, where numbers declined due to early graduation, and in pre-K, where numbers continue to grow. We're at 94 right now for pre-K students, I think, which seems to be a high number to me in terms of my tenure here. I think that may be indicative of some of the reports we're looking at about increasing number of very young children about to come into the system.
Okay, any questions? Okay, so thank you. So we will move on to new business. So we are going to take a look at the Wilbraham Middle School New York City field trip. So this is a vote.
We're not doing programming studies, that's a skip.
Correct.
Okay.
Oh, wait, I thought that program studies, the paper that came there, it was so well done. It's different than before. I just thought it was amazing.
So we'll be hearing about that next time.
Is there a presentation, or are we looking for a motion to approve? Motion to approve.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought we were voting on the field trips.
Oh, right.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah. So everyone, we're talking about the Wilbraham Middle School New York City field trip. They're looking for a vote. So Mike, go ahead, sorry.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any questions or discussion?
I have a question. I was just wondering, how come all of the field trips are all in 1 week and not spread out throughout the year?
John said he would be available via phone to answer any questions, but I have Tim on my phone. So if someone else can dial John in, I'm sure we can get an answer to that question.
Do you have it, Doug, or not?
I could, I guess I could conference him in with Tim and then drop John. Let me try that. Okay, try it. Maybe if he sees two people calling him immediately.
Hi, John. I'm just wondering why the field trips all in 1 week and not spread out, just because of the cost?
So the cost will be, so they can start paying as soon as it's approved. So I believe for the New York trip was the most expensive. They could pay in 2 different installments, but we also tried to plan it so that it's after MCAS. So our final MCAS is the civics, which is the first week of June. So we bumped the trips to after that.
John, I don't know if, you may not have heard the question in its entirety. The question was about why are the field trips in the same week?
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we put them in the same week because we needed to, I mean, the end of school was originally after MCAS. It was a week and a half. So we're trying to schedule everything after MCAS.
The only reason I'm asking is because for all 3 field trips, it's a lot of money, so I didn't know if there was any thought to spreading it out in future years. But you're saying that it's to not miss any educational days for preparing for MCAS.
Yeah, especially since they're 8th grade trips, and the remaining MCAS are both science and civics. So those are both 8th grade tests as well. Like the DC trip is always after MCAS. And ultimately the Brownstone trip is usually that week, so is the DC trip. We tried to, so the overall cost of all 3 trips is still probably half what the DC trip would be.
What's the cost for all 3 trips if students decide to go to all 3 trips?
So I think we estimated high on what we provided for you. I think we put 300 down for New York City, 200 for Boston, and I think Brownstone ends up being, we put 100, but I think in reality those are all high. It's just going to be dependent upon busing. So those are the pieces that we're not sure about. Brownstone's usually about 65, I want to say. New York City, the cost there is busing plus the Broadway show. And Boston is the aquarium and things that ticket prices are not our friend.
Okay. I was just wondering if you plan to go like next year, if you're doing these same trips, maybe is there a way there could be more of a payment plan for families? Just because parents did reach out about that, so that's why I'm asking all these questions. So
Yep,
maybe
that's
like
fair.
earlier in the year, putting it out there? I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's definitely good feedback for us. I think what we originally thought was the New York City trip being the most expensive. There could be 2 different payments for that, so they didn't have to pay it all at once. But it's very good to hear that. It's good feedback.
Thank you.
Any additional questions? Okay, so we will do roll call vote. Cheryl? Aye. Tim?
Yes.
Sean?
Aye.
Lisa?
Yes.
Rich?
Yes.
Mike?
Yeah.
Myself? Yes. Motion carries 7-0. Thank you. So now we are discussing
Can we
the,
do the other one too?
Brownstone, yep.
Hang on just a second, John.
so this is for the Brownstone Adventure Park field trip.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any questions or discussion? Okay, so we will do roll call vote. Cheryl? Aye. Tim?
Yes.
Sean?
Aye.
Lisa?
Yes.
Rich?
Yep.
Mike?
Yep.
Myself? Aye. Motion approved. Motion carries 7-0. Thank you. Thanks, John.
John, is there, since you're all in such an agreeable mood, can we also offer up the Sunny's Place trip, which is actually in Connecticut as well?
Is that on the agenda?
Not on the agenda.
We can't, it's already done.
Okay.
Sorry. Nice try.
Nice try.
There are 3 on the sheet.
Boston, we don't have to, it's not, they're not going out of state. So New York and Connecticut. Okay. So we will continue with, John, I'll have you take the next one. The district review interview.
Oh, yes, we had a conversation with our district reviewers earlier today. We're getting pretty close to the actual on-site visit. Glad that we have students here tonight, because one of the things that they'll be doing is asking for student volunteers to talk to them as part of our district review process. You'll be finding out more about that in days to come. Another part of the process is to have an interview with school committee members. They would like to have 2 or 3 to stay below quorum. And so this is a time, and we're going to try to get me a finalized schedule, so let me see if I can find that. I didn't see it come in, but I was working on something else.
I think what they proposed, which is set in stone, is Monday, March 23rd, 4:15 to 5:15, but that's not set in stone.
Okay, I do have an updated schedule, so let's see. Nope, that's not it. I have to go through yes, yes.
I just noticed there's 5 students and we have more than 5 empty seats. Do they want to come and sit up here so they can be more part of the conversation, do you think? Would that be amenable to the committee?
You're trying to get them trapped here.
You can come and go as you please. If you'd like to be up here to be more in it, you're welcome to come on up, I guess.
One of the chairs may be like the one in Harry Potter where the chains magically come out from underneath. And
I don't think I can manage the multi-factor from one device.
I have no problems with them joining us.
I think we just,
Want to stay there?
Yeah.
well, the time they proposed and this is still the same time, because they would only change it if the school committee wanted another time,
Right,
so I think.
Monday, March 23rd, 4:15 to 5:15, but
So we have to pick 3 victims, is what we're talking about here?
2 or 3, either way.
2 or 3 victims.
I can do it if you can sign me up, or I'll be one of the interested parties.
is that time work, Tom?
Yeah.
Monday?
I have enough notice that I can just inform work that I have to leave early.
I'll send it,
Okay. Well, I mean, other people want to do it or have time?
I'm on call on that Monday, so if it is that day, I got a partner on site.
Lisa, Tim, Rich?
I'd be willing to do it if
I come back in on the 23rd. Otherwise, I do it.
Okay.
I think you said you'd be willing to do it, is that what you said, Tim?
yeah, I'd be willing to do it.
Okay.
Okay, so Tim and I.
Tim and John.
Super.
Okay.
It'll be myself and it'll be Tim meeting with, are we meeting with these students?
No, students will be in a different focus group.
Okay. Super.
Okay, so we'll continue with the Assistant Superintendent for Finance Operations and Human Resources. Doug?
Good evening. Get my microphone a little closer here. There we go. So the monthly budget update, it's in your packet materials. It was put in there this morning. It's been a busy week. It's a fairly short report. Most of the trends that we've seen through the course of the year and have been reported in the last couple of monthly budget reports are true again for this month. You know, one of the things I would say, and I've mentioned it here, is we'll need to be mindful when considering utilization of our remaining budget resources relative to the remainder of the fiscal year and strategizing supports for the coming fiscal year. So we'll talk about that a little bit more as we get into the superintendent's presentation, but I think the current budget is holding up fine. We have good resources to complete the year, and there are places where there's pressure. We've had a lot of snow this winter. So there's a lot that's well over budget, but there's some other areas that are less, so we have, capacity to absorb some of those kinds of costs. And as you look at the actual details, there's a number of places that we've, highlighted in the past and we'll continue to monitor and/or, there's some accounting things we need to do. We need to build the talents for capital projects. We'll need to do that to recoup those resources, but we're in good shape at the moment, and, I believe we'll be able to finish the fiscal year in good order. And I'm happy to answer any questions people have if they notice something they want to ask about. Okay, moving on. In your materials tonight is a packet that has the budget as prepared for Monday night's meeting with the town of Hamden. At the back of that is an updated capital projects list, which I'll touch on at the end. Given some feedback, we made some adjustments to capital projects more significantly than we did to the actual operating and debt budget, which we're seeing here. I think the key thing is, we continue to work on the details, and as we get better and more information about the coming year, we make those adjustments to the budget and the projections. We still are estimating for those open contracts, so that's a challenging aspect of what we have in our budget planning, but also we've made an estimate for what we think we're going to end up with regard to that. At this point, our offsets we're holding steady with what we've presented before, and our amount to be assessed to the towns is at $44,816,489. That's most of the way down on the page near the bottom two little chunks of the grid there, which creates pretty significant increases in the assessments from the current year till next year for each of the two towns. There's a number of factors that play into that. Some of the things are changes, in enrollments and the factors that are captured within the Chapter 70 formula, and just general enrollment trends as well, that have influence on this. And so you see a more pronounced increase for Hamden than for Wilbraham as far as percentage increase. That's held true all along and continues to be true, and it's going to be, sort of as we think about what we need to do to get to a budget that can get approved, will have a significant impact on how things scale as we change this budget moving forward. Immediately below that is just the capital projects for the region. You'll notice that number's a lot smaller than it was last time. Trimmed a number of projects out, partly because we went, the advice given to us was to really prioritize around the key things that we need to get done. We came to them and said, our sort of order of events is around things that leverage a fair amount of additional resources. So we have a lot of E-rate support for technology. So we kind of split the cost on those projects. Things that are related to health and safety, things that are either at end of useful life or not working anymore. So and then things that were not as urgent in that regard around health and safety, those sort of things got moved out a year. And so it was a pretty significant reduction from what we had previously in this capital projects. And then, in the capital project packet, you can see additional moves from the current year into next year. Basically, I moved any project that we were trying to shift out of 27, just moved it into fiscal 28. We'll need to rebalance the plan and rework the rest of the capital plan a little bit more in the coming months and over the coming year, but significant reduction to the ask from each of the communities for capital requests, which should hopefully make their meeting that need a lot easier. So I'm happy to answer any questions people have or things they've noticed or want to ask about.
Doug, what is the percentage assessment, for each town? Like, is it 80-20, or I know it's close, but
Yeah, the sort,
Can I have the exact number, please, if you have it?
do I have it right on this? It's almost 80-20. It's almost actually 79-21, but I don't think I have it on visually with me right now. It's based on enrollment. That shifts it just a little bit towards Hamden, so their number's gone up. I want to say they're at 20.93, if I'm rounding to 2 decimal places. And so whatever 1 minus 0.2093 is which is 79 point something for Wilbraham. So the thing to keep in mind though about that is that really gets applied, that percentage really gets applied after we've hit the sort of minimum local contributions. So when we go through the Chapter 7 formula and the state assessment method, the standard assessment method from the state, that dictates a minimum local contribution. It's the things above that that get added to at that sort of 4-to-1 ratio. But when we go to say reduce our budget, all of it's in that area of 4-to-1. So our regional assessment method plays into all reductions or additions at this point in our budget because we're above the minimum level of funding for the district. So that sort of Chapter 70 formula and statutory assessment method plays into the sort of the beginning part of our assessment calculation, and it's that above that threshold that starts to get apportioned in that $1 to $4 kind of way, but we're sort of reversing back from that to something, as long as we're staying above the minimum, we're sort of trading those in at 20 cents versus 80 cents.
Okay. And has anything changed since Tuesday, the last version I've looked at this? Okay.
No change.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we are going to move on to public comment. Is there anyone that is interested in making public comment this evening? Okay, so if I could ask you, so one at a time, if you would take the seat at the table. You can just make sure that you press the button. You'll see a green light turn on. If you could just please state your name. You can go up at your leisure, whoever would like to go first. If you could please state your name and your affiliation with the district. We'd appreciate it.
Hi there, I'm Madeline Blue. I'm a student, sophomore at Minnechaug.
You don't have to.
I'm speaking on behalf of my peers as well as my educators. When I was in 1st or 2nd grade, I would go to union and school meetings with my dad since he was a union leader in South Hadley High. Among schools in Chicopee, South Hadley, Springfield, and Holyoke, they were fighting to get better pay. Now here I am, almost 8 years later, doing the same on my own. I'm a French student at Minnechaug. We have one teacher, and she's forced to combine classes because she doesn't have enough time or students to teach. Imagine taking an Algebra 2 class with people who haven't even touched the subject. And she'd participate and work her role if she didn't feel as if she abandoned us in her absence. Clubs of mine have been suspended and events because my teachers aren't getting paid what they deserve. My A-push teacher is the only history teacher that does field trips, but he can't because I worked her role. Last year, I had an English teacher who didn't get prep and had to do either all her work outside of school or while we were doing our own work. Even then, it doesn't account for the hundreds of dollars she spent on materials for us. At what point do we stop valuing our teachers? You may say we do, but how far does a $1 cup of coffee go, or a dozen cookies, or whatever gift you might think solves whatever problems and makes them feel appreciated? At some point, we need to put our foot down and give them fair wages. Educators haven't just taken on the role of a teacher. They've been students' counselors, or their second parents, or maybe even their first. Teachers play a key role in a child's life and sets them up for their entire future, and especially in our high school settings. The least we can do is pay them how we value them. It may not be the norm to adjust to inflation, but we can always start here.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Caroline Huber, and I'm a sophomore at Minnechaug. Recently, my classmates and I were asked to propose potential field trip ideas for our A-Push class, and we each created a slideshow to showcase these ideas. Many of us became excited with the opportunity to connect our classroom understanding with outside experience. Each proposal was a unique opportunity to engage with the world and expand upon our prior knowledge. However, once our presentations had concluded, our A-Push teacher informed us with the unfortunate truth. Due to the recent movement where teachers are following work-to-rule guidelines under their expired contract, field trips and the preparation they require are not possible. As an AP student that is also active in extracurriculars like American Cancer Society and the Minnechaug Smoke Signal, these changes are extremely noticeable. Club meetings and events happen far less frequently. It is harder to find time to stay after with your teachers, but most notably, field trips are not occurring. These changes made me realize how much teachers really do that goes unnoticed and is too often taken for granted. A change is necessary in order to restore these activities that enrich the classroom experience and make school and extracurriculars more enjoyable for all. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Nicholas Giancarelli, and I'm a sophomore here at Minnechaug. I'm here to speak about the opportunities given outside the classroom. Our teachers dedicate so much hours of their own lives to us. In addition to teaching, they help us grow and they support us emotionally. Not only that, but some teachers even spend their own money on support tools and materials to aid our learning and our emotional well-being, and that matters. Personally, I'm very involved in extracurriculars here at Minnechaug, and I've seen just how much teachers go above and beyond to help us students. They run clubs, they stay after school to help with homework, and they organize field trips. These opportunities aren't extra, they are essential. They help us connect with peers, they provide us with protective factors, and they give us a reason to be excited to come to school. Right now, teachers are working without a contract and following a work-to-rule guidelines. As a result, after-school activities and field trips are being limited. And when those opportunities are disappearing, students feel it immediately. School becomes more stressful, and it feels like a place we're forced to attend. So overall, teachers mean so much to us. They shape our futures, and they invest in us every single day. But they cannot keep going above and beyond if their time and dedication is not equally valued. So I ask you to consider this. When you support our teachers with a fair contract, you are directly supporting students. You are protecting our opportunities, our growth, and our experience here at Minnechaug. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is good? Everyone here? All right. Hello, my name is Mario Garcia, and like everyone else here, I'm a sophomore at Minnechaug. And I came here to speak today. Before I actually speak, I wanted to thank you all for giving us students the opportunity to come up here and speak to people who can change things. I think it's really cool that we're able to come up here and speak to you all and like actually change things. I think it's great. What I wanted to speak on and what my peers have done a really good job in speaking on is our teachers' contracts. Our teachers work really hard every day to supply great education for us. They stay after school for clubs, extra help like everyone else has said, and they spend money out of their own pocket to ensure that we have a fun education, we have a great education. Recently, it's come to my attention that because of this contract shift, me and my peers who go to this history class are not going to be able to go on a field trip, or if we do, it's going to have some sort of altered schedule. And I just don't think that's fair for me and my student body and my teacher to have to dance around an old and expired contract to go on a field trip. And I'm not going to stand up here and pretend I came up here for some noble cause. I came up here for a little bit of bonus points. Our teacher offered them to speak up here a little bit. And at first it was a lot for the bonus points, but now as I really thought about what I was going to say up here, it became more about standing up for teachers who work really hard to make sure that our education is great. So I just wanted to, before I go up and sit down, I wanted to say that even if we don't come to some super contract that's going to make sure teachers and students get everything they deserve, I hope that we can come to a compromise that makes sure our teachers can teach us and have a great time at their job, and we can get the education that we deserve. Thank you for listening to all of us.
Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. All of you are excellent, thank you.
Is there anyone else who's interested in making public comment this evening? Okay, thank you very much.
How much extra credit did you get?
I don't know yet.
Okay.
But mostly it was out of the goodness of our heart because we love our teachers.
I appreciate the bravery and, putting together the statements. Even though this room isn't filled with 200 people, I know that sitting there by the microphone is stressful. You guys did a good job.
Thank you. So we will continue with our subcommittee updates. Curriculum subcommittee, Lisa?
The program of studies, which will be next agenda.
Okay. Planning committee, the only thing to report is we had discussed with the town of Hamden about putting a placeholder on the warrant for the annual spring town meeting. So I'm not sure if anyone has any objections. It's just a placeholder, non-binding. Finance and operations.
When do we have to ask Wilbraham to do the same thing?
We have the
It's a
date.
or deadline.
Right, they had given us a date. I'll have to go back and check to see
They're
what the date
2
is.
weeks after, right?
I have to check my notes.
Yeah, I believe their presentation is their town meeting is 2 weeks afterwards, so I think we do have a little more time.
I mean, it might be worthwhile to just ask them for the placeholder too, there's no harm in that. So we don't forget. Oh, cool.
Finance, operations, and technology, Mike?
We met with the Hammond Select Board, and we also met with ourselves. This is the time of year where there's a lot of discussions about the budget. Not unusual that a level service budget, which is to keep everything the same at the school, is coming out at more money than the towns are in a position to support or prepared to support. What is unusual this year is that sometimes the gaps I've seen have been $200,000 gap between the two or $500,000 gap between the two. We're looking at a $3.5 million gap right now between what would be needed for a level service budget to run the school district and where the towns, I think, are somewhat prepared. So we directed John to make a list because regardless of what happens, we are going to be looking at some form of reductions to things that are offered in the district because of financial constraints. I have my little sticky notes here of numbers for people who have a frame of reference to kind of know where we are. Doug, well, I just did these with Doug, right? So hopefully they're not wrong. So we haven't gotten a firm number from Hamden. We've gotten a rough number that they could handle about a $450,000 increase in the budget. Keeping in mind the overall budget is $65 million. However, with the way the formula is, we would only then be able to accept a $750,000 increase for Wilbraham. That would leave us with a $2.46 million budget deficit where we are now. A gap, not deficit, gap. Wilbraham felt they were in a position to offer an increase in the budget of $1.5 million, but to be able to accept that, Hamden would have to be in a position to do $662 increase. And that would leave us with a $1.45 million budget gap. And I think everything John's going to talk to about right now, all together, would do the 1.45 million, if I read your thing correct. So anyway, that's kind of numbers of where we are.
So I'm really glad that you're here tonight participating in democracy in action. One of the things that I hope you're taking away from this is that most of government is about money. Every comment that was made tonight, I think, had something to do with money in one way or another. And that really is the business of government. And school administration, for that matter. I remember being told that, You have three resources as an administrator. You have people, time, and money. But really you only have one resource that counts, which is money, because money will buy you more people or more time. So that's really what a lot of this comes down to. We're going to be working off of that board actually as a board later tonight, so if folks feel more comfortable moving to the sides, I would invite you to do so. The way I envision this conversation is we're going to go through some of the potential cuts and some of the reasons for the potential cuts. And then at the end, we'll have an opportunity to actually work through it and go through all those 31 potential reductions, put different combinations of them on and off the board so that we can come up with a final budget that we present for public comment. I believe that's next week. As I go through each of these, please ask questions. I would ask you not to wait till the end because you can really, I think, focus better if you're not filled with questions for other things. And I just want to say, as I mentioned in my memo, I don't consider these to be recommendations. You know, most of the time, I come to the school committee and bring forward ideas that I want you to support because I think they're good ideas. I hope that some of the ideas that I'm going to be presenting tonight you think are horrible or unacceptable because these really all have to do with reductions to the budget which will make the district not as good as it is now. When I was asked to prepare this list, one of the things that Dr. Terabasi asked me to do is if I could go through just a summary of some of the cuts that have taken place already. That made me think that it would be a good time to share with everyone, once again, the written comment that I provided on the Chapter 70 formula on adequacy and equity. Much like our students tonight, an opportunity for me to go before a higher level of government, state government, and talk about what state funding for education is like and what it's done to us. So just calling your attention to the second paragraph of my comments to the state. The challenges faced by HWRSD are not the result of a sudden financial crisis, but rather a decades-long forced contraction of programming necessitated by an unsustainable funding model. The foundation formula's high sensitivity to overall student enrollment has led to a gradual erosion in state support, effectively forcing the district to downside its educational capacity despite strong local commitment to quality education. Over the past 18 years, the district's foundation enrollment has declined by 21.2%. In response, the HWRSD has had to implement a managed contraction, reducing its teacher workforce by 19.3%, from 257.6 full-time equivalent teachers to 208 teachers, and by closing 2 schools. And I would also add by eliminating at least 7 bus routes since I've been here. I don't know how many bus routes altogether. That's some context. Additionally, for context, I would say that what makes this year's budget challenge so daunting is multiple things. I think it's important to remember that we're dealing with multiple causality all the time because if you focus on a single factor, you may end up with a short-sighted idea of what the solution would be. The problem is we have multiple things coming at us and the arrows are all lining up in the same direction to make things hard for us. So one cause is the assessment method split and the funding complexities that creates. That has already been mentioned a couple of times here, but just one, this takes a while to sink in. I think it took a while for it to sink in with me even. Because we're in a position now of cutting back from our budget, which we traditionally do, but since I've been here, often the constraining factor has been what town of Wilbraham thinks they can afford. That's had a knock-on effect of 20 cents. Every dollar that we may have reduced in order to come to an affordable budget for Wilbraham resulted in an additional 20 cents reduction in Hamden, even if they had the money, because of the way the split works. However, you know, there's some thinking this year that the constraining factor might be Hamden, and in Hamden, every dollar that is reduced in order to reach their goal results in a $4 reduction from what Wilbraham would be assessed. So that, you know, the difference between 20 cents and $4, I believe, is 2,000%. So, you know, when it's pointing the other way, the magnification of the funding problem is quite pronounced. As I already talked about, you know, our state and federal, well, our state funds have not grown, mainly because of their sensitivity to the student enrollment. Any funding formula is going to be focused on student enrollment, but it's such that our district really hasn't seen increases in state funding of a significant sort for decades. Add to that now, we haven't had a federal budget for many years. We've been running on continuing resolutions, which basically froze federal funding at the level they were at several years ago, which means that there's the same money to go around, but as populations shift, it can cause you to have a smaller portion of that pie. So we've had, you know, stagnant or reduced federal funds as well. And then there's wage inflation. You know, there are raises that happen every year. That increases the cost of doing business. About 80% of our costs, as you know, are personnel costs. So every little increment of raises for people creates more stress within the budget. So kind of have to think about what are, and also dramatically higher insurance costs. You know, as you know, our insurance bill this year has gone up about 11.2%. And that is hard to fit in a state mandated 2.5% cap on the ability to raise local taxes, or a state capped inflation factor in the Chapter 70 formula of 4.5%. So very hard to make it work. So anyways, the task was to look for reductions. So we approached this the way, you know, we're told to approach this, trained to approach this, which is to use the district resource and allocation tool, radar. It's a tool that DESE puts out. Basically, the recommendation is take a look at some districts that are similar to yours, but performing better than yours. See where they're making their investments, and see if you could do something to line up with that. So here you can see for comparator districts, we have Groton Dunstable, Holliston, Long Meadow. They're all considered comparator districts to us. They're all getting some better outcomes. So take a look at where they're spending their money. First is look at staffing patterns. This is how many staff the districts have per 100 students, so it's normalized to 100 students. You can see that we have fewer teachers than those districts, than any of the districts. Our paraprofessionals are right on average, number of paraprofessionals right on average with those other districts. We have less leadership than the other districts. Leadership is like an adjective, but less people in leadership positions than other districts. The one area where we have more money invested is student support. So you can see we have slightly more student support positions than other districts. Clerical is right on, and tech positions are right on. So it's kind of hard if you look like, well, where could you shift resources? We're basically below or at average with everyone else in everything except student support positions. Another way to look at this is by spending category. And you can see, again, if you look at administration, we are at the bottom in terms of what we spend on administration. Instructional leadership, again, at the bottom. You look at what portion we spend on teachers and other teaching services. I consider both of those two together. We're at the bottom. You look at professional development, almost none of the districts have any kind of wedge that even shows up in what's dedicated to professional development. Instructional materials, we are at 1%, which is pretty much what those other districts are, but not much funds that can be shifted out of something that's only 1% of your overall budget. Guidance and psychology, very comparable to others. When you get to pupil services, there's an area where we have a larger wedge, so you might think maybe we can shift some resources out of pupil services to try to get to some other areas in a way that would be helpful in the budget. And then the last area is maintenance and operations. You know, we have on the high end there, you think maybe we can shift some funds from maintenance and operations. And then the last is benefits and fixed costs. And again, we're on the top end with benefits and fixed costs, or towards the top. So, you know, that might be an area where you can move some money. I'll talk about those areas where we're high and what we might do next. So, first, what's included in pupil services? First is attendance services. We already have $0 in the budget for attendance services, so we can't cut that any. Next is transportation. As I mentioned already, we've cut 7 buses, and our plan in this budget is to cut 1 more. So we're pretty aggressively going after transportation costs. Medical services is included as a pupil service, so we'll present a strategy later tonight to reduce $36,000 from medical services. Food services is included, and it's kind of it's important to account for, but it's essentially an enterprise account. So there's not $1 of food services cost in our budget. So we could stop serving lunch tomorrow and it wouldn't save us a penny. Athletics is also pupil services. You'll see we'll be looking at a strategy for that, for increasing fees for athletics. Student and extracurricular activities, we have a few things in, not really a major strategy that I think we can go after. And then school security. So we've reduced that amount in our budget from $20,000 to $3,750. So I think we've cut about what we can cut from the Pupil Services Cost Center in this budget. When you look at maintenance, we were already proposing a reduction in facilities in our first few budget, but now after being asked to look at that harder, we're going to be offering strategies to reduce that another 6.5%. So that would be an 8.3%, 8.4% reduction in maintenance. So that will line us up with those other districts, if not bring us below with the other districts in terms of our spending in that area. Then the other area is fixed costs. You know, our health insurance went up, as I said, well, all insurances and benefits is up about $1 million in this budget. Those of you who were at the Hamden meeting on Monday heard some leaders go at us pretty hard for not doing more to reduce employee benefits or hold down that cost. But that's a really hard thing to do. The reason this has a lock around it is, you know, your employee benefits are a negotiated benefit. They're in there. You can do some negotiation with your insurers, and we did. I think the original proposal we received from the insurer would have had our insurance costs going up 17%, which I would guess would be much closer to $2 million than $1 million. But we did, and you know, there are things you can do. You can change the model, you can change the benefit, you can change the plan, but all of that takes time to do. You can't just, in the short cycle from when you get your insurance assessment or your insurance projection and have to put forward a budget and say, okay, we're going to change everybody's benefit plan. That may be a strategy moving forward, but that's not a strategy that we can look at for FY27. So these next sets of slides bring us to the memo that you have in front of you. So if you want to follow along at your seats, these will just walk us through what we have. So the first bucket of strategies we have is to reduce assessments by increasing budgetary offsets. So these are ways that we raise our revenue, which means we have to ask for less from the town. So first would be a 5% athletic fee increase. I think that would net $10,000. 5% preschool fee increase. That would be $15,000. Also with some additional offset from the balance that's in there now. We could do a 10% increase to Class C and Class D building use fees. Those are organizations that are not the district or the town. Those are either nonprofit or for-profit organizations that use our schools. We charge a rental fee. If we increase that by 10%, I think we'd bring in an additional $5,000. We could increase the school choice offset. Doug and I were looking at that, comfortable with adding another $100,000. And then another option would be to increase E&D utilization. Both of those last two strategies, which are the most powerful here in terms of getting through FY27, cause problems for future years, so just put that out there as a caveat. One of the reasons why we have the issue that we have with FY27 is we're putting in $500,000 less of E&D that we used last year. So this would be, still tapering, but not tapering as fast, which means there'd be more to address in future years. So the total impact of these strategies would be to reduce the assessments by $230,000, saving Hamden $48,133, saving Wilbraham $181,867. Any questions, thoughts, or discussion about these strategies? Okay.
I have a suggestion for an additional strategy.
Please.
Can people hear me there, John?
Yes, I said please tell us your strategy.
Well, I've been advocating for K-12 education for a half a century. And along with our allies, we got a piece of legislation passed that raised a significant amount of money, which is supposed to go to the schools, the colleges, and transportation. But our governor and the legislature saw it fit to cut taxes, which makes the pie that we just made bigger, smaller. So on the 17th, on St. Patrick's Day, I believe we have our state reps, state senators are going to be here. I think we need to start a letter writing campaign of every citizen, at least every parent in Hamden and Wilbraham, to the House Education Committee, the Senate Education Committee, and the governor and our representatives, saying that they are not meeting their obligations to these children, forcing additional property taxes on smaller towns is inequitable, and we want you to correct it. And quite frankly, I think we ought to start organizing, because back in the late 80s to the mid-90s, the older gateway cities who were burdened with a lot of mandatory students who needed help, and we sued the state, and the state Supreme Judicial Court, quoting our Constitution, that the governor and the legislature should cherish public education. They're not cherishing it. And we need to send that message to every elected state official that we can. because property taxes is regressive. It is not the appropriate way to fund public education. I know they're not going to fix it in one day, but I think we need to start organizing communities like ours, because they're all suffering from what I hear, what I read in the newspaper, and we got to push to get this Commonwealth to meet its obligations to K through 12 students in this Commonwealth.
Thank you. I really appreciate that comment. Tomorrow, Doug and I are going to be at a legislative luncheon, provided that the state of Massachusetts isn't locked up like an ice cube again. And I'm actually leading a talk on that. You know, my basic question for our legislative delegation is going to be, we're looking at 280 communities or districts out of 350 in the Commonwealth that are in the same position we're in due to this funding, including Boston. There has to be a majority there, right? I would think like you could put together some legislation that would pass. And, you know, the state budget process isn't done yet. You know, one of our strategies, not listed here, but is increasing revenue from the state. And so I think, you know, you've seen my letter writing, and you know, I would really, really appreciate some extra credit for students who write letters, because it's critical. You know, anything that we can do to add on the revenue side allows us to get to where we need without having to go into these strategies. So thank you for that. So moving on to section 2.
Wait, I had a question. So by increased school choice offset, you mean bring in more school choice students?
No, we increasing the offset that we're taking from our balance. So when we look at how much money we have in the revolving fund for student choice, school choice, we feel like we can take more out of that. Because taking more students in for choice could be a strategy, but it won't be a strategy that helps for 27, because you spend the money in the year after you collect it.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you. All right, so section 2, these are purchase timing strategies. There are two things we could do. I could implement an immediate spending freeze, which would allow money to flow from this year's budget into E&D that could be spent next year. A more straightforward way to do it might be to pre-purchase things that we're going to use for next year with money we have available this year, which would allow us to reduce those line items in our request for next year, or some combination of the two. Some things we're not legally able to purchase at this time, so we might freeze a portion of that budget to bring it forward to purchase it next year, and then buy as much as we can now. That would be a potential strategy of $150,000, a $31,391 reduction to Hamden, $118,609 to Wilbraham. Any questions about that one?
But the net impact of this would be to decrease the available E&D for next year.
It depends how you think about it. If we froze it now, that would blow up E&D for next year more than we think it would be. If we spend it now, it would not have that, it wouldn't flow into E&D, but it would reduce the amount that we need to put in other line items for next year. The next is capital cost reduction strategies. You know, a big part of the assessment are the capital costs for the regional buildings. We have a Minnechaug boiler. You know, we have one boiler in this, or one heat exchanger in this school that isn't functioning right now. So we have one boiler that's essentially offline that needs to be fixed. Because we can run the school with one boiler out of commission, but we can't run it with two out of commission. Cost is about $160,000. We have put that in our draft budget into the assessment, but we could take it out of the capital stabilization fund for Minnechaug High, which would then reduce those assessments. We wouldn't take the money there. The reduction to Hamden would be $31,520. Reduction to Wilbraham would be $128,480.
But then if that boiler goes,
Well, we would be fixing the boiler, so that would then give us still the sort of cushion of having another boiler that could go. The problem is we can't spend the money twice. So when we take it out of the capital stabilization fund, it's not there for anything else that pops up. We can't use it to fix a second boiler.
So the issue I have with this particular strategy is that both of the towns deal with the money that they use to pay operating budget, assessments in a very different way than they do to deal with capital expenses. Both towns tried to cover capital using their available free cash, which is the same as you need from us, and they try to use tax revenue for operating expenses. And the reason being is that's a very wise practice to go about because of the exact problem we're having that under pressure from the towns, we have been using way too much of the school district's E&D to supplement the operating cost assessments. The problem is it's a free cash account, so this year we had much less E&D than we had last year. And so it's a self-fulfilling prophecy of budget shortfall. What the town should be encouraging us to do is saying, we don't want you putting E&D towards the operating assessment. We want you to use your E&D to cover your capital, as many of the regional capital expenses as you can before you come to us for that. So if they practiced what they preached, okay, and asked us to follow what they do for themselves, that's what they would be encouraging us to do, and it would prevent future major budget gaps. We have a lot of reasons for the gap this year, but so I don't like this strategy because the towns won't turn that $160,000 to additional operating expenses for us. They will buy an extra police car or buy an extra ambulance or something like that for money that they didn't have to spend on a capital request for us.
Fair enough. Any other thoughts about this one?
And that doesn't mean that I think buying another police car if it's needing is bad. All the departments in the towns have needs, and the schools is the biggest part of the town budget for both towns. We have to respect that, but there are other departments that have needs. They can't completely ignore all the other departments for the schools.
Yeah, but if we have the money in the stabilization fund, rather than just having it sitting here, if we could use that, it would free up the towns to do some of the other things that they have to do, and that's what this is all about. This is all about seeing what cuts that we can make, what different things that we can do to take the pressure off of the towns, because right now the burden on the towns is exuberant.
Okay. As I said, we're going to have, as I envision this, at the end, we'll go through the list and do up and downs on all of them and see where we end up. So I'm just going through what each of them are right now. Next would be delay ICP expansion costs. We had put some money into the budget in anticipation of having another group of students joining us, expanding it, because we're very likely to get the second pathway approved. If we held the number of 8th graders at the current number, saying regardless of which pathway, we can't take more than 20, we could take that position out, which would save $72,000. If we were to pause the 8th grade and say you have to come, you have to only enroll in 9th grade, then we could reprogram $267,000 to other costs, basically reducing the high school budget ask for next year. So if you did that second one, 4B, that would be a reduction of $267,000, reduction to Hamden of $56,505, reduction to Wilbraham of $213,495.
So the money for Innovation Career Pathways is a grant from the state. And you're saying that we would take the money that they would send us and instead of using it for the 8th graders, use it for something else?
No, I'd be saying use it for 9th through 12th graders, which is part of the
But
reason.
I thought we were already using ICP money for 9th through 12th graders.
To a certain extent, but the majority of it has gone to supporting the 8th grade.
And the year before this year, did we have the same amount of money, or did we have less money, or how did that work? Or are we just robbing
Well,
9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th to pay for the 8th graders?
The year before this year, we didn't have the ICP program, so we didn't have that problem.
That's what I thought.
You have a cap of 20. What are you expecting if it's not capped?
It's hard to guess, but I think it could be 40.
So this wouldn't get rid of the existing ICP program, nor would it stop the new one that we're probably going to have approved. It would just limit it to 9th through 12th grade, and the 8th graders wouldn't be included in it.
That's correct.
And that would be an operating expense savings of $267,000.
Correct.
Okay.
But then we would have these children back in the middle school.
Yeah.
That's right. That is, that is one of the downsides of this. I'll just say this, as I've been thinking through this, one of my sort of thoughts of careful what you wish for is if we were really successful and able to pull off a ton of students from 8th grade, I think that might make it harder for us to demonstrate to the state that we need to be in the core program because of overcrowding. So there's that.
But alas, the building is still falling down, so
Correct.
there are other reasons to be in
Correct.
the core program.
Correct.
No.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
I said, but the other choice is limiting it to 20 students, which isn't really relieving the middle school of anything really at all.
Well,
That's 20 students this
I do
year.
think it's had an impact on 8th grade. I've been talking to, actually I was at the gala and I was talking to an 8th grade parent who was saying how wonderful the program is and blah, blah. And I said, oh, tell me a little bit about what is your child like about the high school? And she said, oh no, my kid's not in the program. I think it's wonderful because my class sizes have gotten smaller in 8th grade. So it has been noticeable. You wouldn't think, just 20 kids, but when you take 20 kids out of 10 sections, it's 2 kids per class. It's enough for people to notice. So, anyways, that's all to think about. Section 5 is turnover optimization strategies. So this could be, this is a strategy where we try to maximize what we get from turnover, sometimes called breakage, by hiring new people at a lower rate than exiting retirees. We would implement probably an M6 hiring cap, which we think would give us a potential reduction of $40,000. It does mean that we might have difficulty hiring some of the specialty roles. It also might mean that we're not always hiring the best person to educate the students. But it would be an opportunity for us to save some money. There might be more on this. I think we have an exceptionally small number of retirees right now. I think it's because we don't have a settled contract. Because if you're thinking about retiring, you want to get your final pay increases so that those count towards your retirement. So I think if we do get a settled contract, we may see a swell of retirements, which might give us some more room to run on this strategy. But at $40,000, it would save Hamden $8,371. It would save Wilbraham $31,699.
How does that work?
I tell the principals, don't hire anyone above M6.
I can offer a suggestion. So when you're looking at people's resumes, if they've got 15 years experience, they're automatically excluded. That's the short story on that. You're looking at newer to the teaching profession, generally speaking, when that happens. And it may not include, I mean, you may have circumstances where it's don't hire, or because there's not somebody with that sort of, level of experience that's available for a particular job.
Or the other thing that we have done in the past when we've had hiring caps is say, okay, we can offer you the job, but we're not going to recognize your service, because the hardest we can go is M6. You know, it could be a strategy that may work this year, because that's what I started. You know, not every district is looking at the same kind of problems that we're looking at, but we're surrounded by districts with multi-million-dollar budget gaps. So I think there's going to be a lot of staff on the market. Yeah.
Agreed. It's just like filling the specialty roles like you said.
Right.
And if you're a specialty teacher, I don't see them really saying, I'll stick at M6.
Yeah. Well, you know, I think it depends on where we end up. You know, someone might hire a bachelor's too, and that might give me room to say, okay, well, I can have some flexibility on a different position.
Okay.
It's not considered some form of age discrimination to do this practice?
No, age and years of service are not always correlated because of mid-career, midlife career changes.
Years of service discrimination?
Years of service isn't a protected class.
Okay.
Okay. Wrong button. Section 6, limiting work beyond the school year. We currently do $20,000 worth of curriculum development in the summer. Cancel that. I would say Camden $4,168, Wilbraham $15,814.
Just out of curiosity, is this popular with the teachers or unpopular?
I would ask Lisa to answer that.
There is a considerable amount of summer work done, curriculum related. So developing, looking at assessments, updating curriculum maps, looking at using new materials and creating lesson plans, lots of work, and 20,000 is pretty conservative. Some years we have the need for more than that.
So they let those that participate enjoy doing it?
They seem to.
It is voluntary.
It's voluntary and it's paid at the contractual rate, so.
But I'd also say I'd rather not do summer work and not have somebody lose their job. So.
What do you think of the idea of some of that being pushed onto you during the school year? If you were a teacher, right? She said they do a lot of stuff. It'll have to still get done eventually. So it'll be pushed into prep times during the school year.
I'm just saying, if we're thinking about cuts so that we're not actually cutting student-facing jobs, I'd rather for one summer not cut 20,000 for summer work so that we don't have to cut a student-facing position.
Yep, I think that that's a fair point, and Dr. Tirabassi is also correct that some of the work absolutely has to get done before students or while students are in the building, so it's a trade-off.
Okay. Section 7 is cost reduction through attrition, letting vacant positions go vacant or doing something creative when they become vacant. So I already mentioned earlier that I thought we could make some further reductions to facilities and maintenance. So this would be a restructuring plan that would result in $75,000 savings. We also think we can do some restructuring in the central office with open positions, saving $40,000. We have an instructional coach position that's open right now. We could leave that open, $93,000, and a middle school teacher who we had, hoped to put in there to address overcrowding in 6th and 7th grade, but obviously that position hasn't been approved or filled yet, so we could take that out. That would be a savings of $277,000. $57,969 for Hamden, $219,031 for Wilbraham.
So a question, looking at this, next to, I know there's multiple slides apart, next to the changes to the innovative career pathway, would it logically make sense that if we decided to pull the 8th graders out of the high school to get those 267 savings, then it might make more sense to, if we employ any of these in Section 7, to hire the middle school teacher and not get rid of that, because there'd be 20 more students in the middle school? Or am I not?
No, I think
Is that not a logical thought?
No, it's a logical thought, and I think even more of a logical thought because we flex some resources from the middle school to the high school to help with the 8th grade. So if the students are moving back, fair to move resources back. Section 8 is eliminate instructional coaching. Want to just caution that 8A is the same as 7A. It's a position that is currently vacant, so can't cut it twice, that's all I'm going to say. You can't pick 7A and 8A. Then if you did the rest of the coaching personnel, which are 3 more positions, you'd save $120,000. So you might ask, why doesn't it scale? Why isn't, all 4 times as much as just the single vacant position? 2 reasons why. Coaching is supported in part by grant funds, so not the entire cost of those other 3 positions are in the budget. About $30,000 of them is in a grant. And then the other thing is, it's not their salaries that you would save. It's the salaries of the teachers who they would bump out that you would save, who are much less senior staff. But if you did eliminating instructional coaching altogether, it's a savings of $213,000, reduction to Hamden of $44,567, reduction to Wilbraham of $168,424. Next is Section Appendix B reductions. This is extra duties for personnel, and these are all negotiated benefits, so you can't change the rates, but you can choose not to fund them, and then things don't happen. So first, Section 9A is don't fund coaching positions for teams that have not run for several years. So girls freshman basketball, esports fall, esports spring, robotics fall, robotics spring. Those are positions that have not been needed. We don't anticipate that they would be needed in the future. So we could proactively cut that from the budget. That's $12,242 for that combination. A little hard to read. One of the things we put up as a plus on this is even if we cut the robotics team that nobody participates in, we could, and students who had an interest in robotics could still join the robotics club, which we are not recommending cutting. Next, I shouldn't say recommending, we're not even offering for a cut because I don't consider any of these to be recommendations. The next is do not fund the freshman football assistant coach. That's a savings of $4,744. And the reason we're saying that is it would result in an elimination of freshman football, but that's a team that is having trouble finding teams to play. For the past several years, they've only had 4 contests a season because there aren't a lot of schools left that have freshman football teams. So the impact would be somewhat minimal. You'd still have JV that freshmen could play on, JV football, and you still have varsity football.
Can I just ask about that one?
Sure.
I'm seeing that the stipend for that, I'm just making sure, is less than the $47.74.
Oh, we also included, you're correct, we also included that savings for officials for their games and savings for transportation, because we need fewer buses. Next is 9E, do not fund drama assistant director. This would not be a cancellation of the program. It would mean more work would fall into the other two positions that support drama. So you still have your drama director and your drama tech. Based on the sizes of the drama club and productions, we think that it could be doable with 2 instead of 3. Next is do not fund future, next are a bunch of clubs that are all, would be eliminated, but we think maybe smaller participation, so maybe not such an impact. So Future Business Leaders of America, $704, Lumberjack Club, $1,585, One Act Plays, $1,428, Peer Mentors and Peer Ambassador are 2 clubs that are very similar, so we think we could fund one of them. We put here the savings for the lower paid position. We think if a student wants to be an ambassador but that club doesn't run, they would be maybe interested in being a mentor. Then table tennis, this is a small stipend for a small tournament. And then do not fund middle school curriculum coordinators. The idea there is kind of mirroring up with the curriculum coaches. Of course, our instructional coaches, I don't know what your thoughts are about that, but one of the thinking on this was there's some kind of reciprocity there, that if you're eliminating instructional support positions district-wide, you should think about eliminating instructional support positions that are based in one school. So the total cost of these targeted Appendix B, or the total savings of these targeted Appendix B reductions would be $41,323, $8,648 for Hamden, $32,657 for Wilbraham.
John, what's strength and conditioning?
Oh, sorry, did I skip that one?
Did we skip it, or did I just
It's
not?
listed, but he didn't actually mention it.
Okay.
I
What
did
is
skip
that?
over it.
So strength and conditioning is a stipend that is paid. I'm sure there's more to it than this, but it's a stipend that's paid for a teacher who puts together conditioning programs for students to do in the fitness center. Our thought on that is students could still have access to the fitness centers with their coaches. You know, a lot of coaches do bring their kids into the fitness center instead of sending them to the fitness for life or strength and conditioning teacher. The downside would be is if you have a student who's not associated with a team or who's on a team where the coach says, you know, I'm not going to use time to bring you to the weight room, then they would lose access to the weight room.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
So, sorry to go back to the football. So if you're eliminating a 9B, if you're the assistant football coach for freshmen, and they only had 4 contests last year, wouldn't you also eliminate the freshman coach?
We had a conversation about this. My understanding, and Doug might know more about this than me, but my understanding is the freshman coach also has duties with the JV team, possibly even the varsity team. And so they think that to do the 2 teams, JV and varsity, they need 6 coaches, 5 coaches, 6 coaches. So it would be going from 7 football coaches to 6 football coaches.
Okay.
And that freshman coach would still have duties with the JV or varsity team.
Okay, so you're just shifting, okay,
Right.
increasing. Okay, and then my other question is, so if we're talking about so we had the conversation about the instructional coaches, and then we're talking about the middle school curriculum coordinators. So that would cover the middle school since, so then are we also talking about eliminating department heads at the high school? Because wouldn't that be kind of in the same trajectory?
We haven't had that conversation. Part of the thinking around that, obviously, it's something you could think about. Part of the thinking around that is, so if we wipe out instructional leadership, if you go back to my first slide where I said, we're putting less money in instructional leadership than other districts who are doing better, and now we're talking about making that even less. Someone's got to pick up the work. And one thought is that could be a role for the department chairs. Right now, they, are kind of doing that work within the high school alone, but we teach those subjects at all grade levels, not just in the high school. So I think part of this is we wanted to open the door to a conversation about how those department chairs could help support other schools as well as the high school if we eliminate the other instructional support positions.
Okay, and then my next question kind of ties into that. So I know we're probably going to circle back to the conversation, but if the committee were to lean one way or the other on either the instructional coaches for the district versus the middle school, is it an all or nothing? Or when we're having this discussion, are we able to kind of choose various items from various sections of?
You'll see when you get to the worksheet at the end, there's 31 separate lines. The only things you can't do are things that are included in multiple sections. So you can't cut the same thing twice, but you can cut any other combination of things you want.
Okay, thank you.
Section 10 is what I'll call traditional layoffs, just reducing staff because you don't have enough money to pay for them. So high school paraprofessional, and the next, that's just a position. The next one is not really a position, it is reducing the number of sections, so it might be parts of different people. So the benefit to this is you still, if the person doesn't leave, you still keep them working for your district, they don't lose their benefits. It's a way to sort of spread a cut over several people rather than having an entire cut land on one person. And it's more feasible for maintaining our courses and current offerings that we have. The downside is, because you have fewer sections, you have larger class sizes. 10C is middle school strings. We did an increase in this budget to bring strings program from after school to in the day. We could undo that in the next budget, put them after school. It'll just be a time for me to maybe insert this, along with my comments about these are not recommendations, these are not things I want. It's really frustrating for me as a superintendent, as I'm sure as it is for you as school committee members. This job is awesome when you're adding new programs and you're building things for students and you're creating a new vision for the future. Which I've only been able to do to a very tiny extent, because every single year I've been here, there's been a budget cap and we've been reducing things. And now we're talking about taking the few things that we have been able to add to improve services for kids and taking them out. So that's just my feeling.
You reduce your sections. How does that save money? Save teachers, right?
Because instead of say 6 of us all having a full schedule, we'd all have a part-time schedule. So our wages would go down.
You're paying the teachers less.
Correct. Okay, and then the last one is to reduce our constellation of nurses by a half position. Okay, so total for traditional layoffs is $169,000. The savings to Hamden is $35,368. The saving for Wilbraham is $133,632. And then that brings us to the last one, which is related to this one and a few of the other ones, which is benefit cost avoidance. One of the things I said earlier was the fixed costs and the benefits costs really can't be reduced at this point in the year. Well, that wasn't entirely true. you can reduce your benefits cost by reducing your staff qualify for benefits. So if we did do some of the reductions of staff, there would be a follow-on benefit reduction of costs for their benefits. So we think just based on what we've put in these strategies, there's about a $45,000 benefit savings. The reduction to Hamden would be $9,417. The reduction to Wilbraham would be $35,538. Obviously, this is the amount, or maybe not obviously, so let me say, this is the amount if you accepted every single staff reduction we put up there. If you accept less than that, then this number goes down too. So those are the 11 strategies. We now have a dynamic tracker. Aaron, if you want to just open, you could try clicking that, or if you want to just open your others. Okay. So this is a worksheet that will fill in as you make choices. And if you can just scroll down to about line 35, I think it is, Aaron. It'll track the total for you for the district and for each of the towns if there's a number you have in your mind that you're trying to get to. So
all these were done, what was the total?
If all of them are done, it's about 1.48 million, I think.
Yes. I just did the
Tell me
numbers
the
and added.
consequences if, because this is horrible. This is horrible, so what are the consequences of not reducing? Like, I know there's consequences, so tell me, finance
So the
team.
process, is talking about what the process would be like?
Yes.
If we put forward a budget and you approve the budget and it doesn't pass in both towns, there are several steps. So the first step is that the school committee has an opportunity to reconsider its budget to see if it will bring the budget down to a number that it thinks will pass in the towns. The next step, I believe, is that there is a district-wide meeting. So instead of having meetings in individual towns, you bring the voters from both towns together and see if, as a corporate group, they would pass the budget. And then if that doesn't work, you essentially, at that point, have to implement a 1/12 budget and continue working through the process of trying to reach a negotiated agreement between the two towns. And if that doesn't work, eventually the commissioner will come in and say, this is what your budget is.
Also, to add on to
Did I
that,
get all the steps right?
well, there could be a 2.5 override triggered in either town or both towns because of the budget.
Yeah, I'll just say, talk about the process relative to the commissioner saying, if you get to the place with the 1/12 budget, the commissioner also sets the budget that you take 1/12 of. So they'll sometimes take the previous year's budget. You can make a case for something more than that, but not maybe to the, to the full amount you might want to have. But that is at the commissioner's discretion. So they could essentially hold you to, this current year's sort of budget funding level and, divide it by 12 and progress. And you have 6 months to get it sorted. If you get to December or the end of December and we have it, if we don't resolve to a formal budget, that's when the commissioner weighs in and says, here's the number. And then the towns just have to find the money, if depending on what they pick. Like if they pick something that's, if the commissioner picks something that's challenging for the towns to support, and again, they're mid-fiscal year, so it's really, has a cascading effect potentially. It's a very, very drastic place to be.
How often do you know of that happening?
1/12 budgets are pretty rare. It does happen. I don't know of any, I've not heard of any anecdotally, not that I've done research on this, of where they've gone all the way to the 6-month part and the commissioner just waves their wand and says this is what your budget is. But there are certainly communities that have gone to 1/12. They usually try to resolve them within the first 2 or 3 months of the fiscal year, for sure. It's just really, I can say this, it's a tremendous burden on staff to manage that situation, and it can be really challenging to operate, even if you're getting 1/12 of a budget, it can be really challenging to do the things. If you think about us, one of the things we do is we pay the entirety of our retirement assessment at the very beginning of the fiscal year. It's a big chunk of money to go out the door, but it saves us 2% on the bill, which is, not a small amount of money. In a 1/12 budget, we couldn't do that, so we'd have to make a payment and then wait 6 months and make another payment, but it's going to make our fixed cost for retirement higher than it would be normally. So there's things like that happen. It's a really challenging environment for staff to work through. But I don't know of any town that's gone all into the 6 months. I'm sure it's happened in the history of regional schools, but it's not too common. And usually when you get to June and you're still not quite there, everybody gets a little more focused on finding an answer that towns can agree on.
What's the consensus with the groups you've been talking about your legislative lunch? Like, I know last year we were also saying the state has not been living up to funding school districts, and the state still did nothing. So I'm wondering if you feel like there's any kind of momentum or difference going on, because
I think there's pressure building. I think we're far away from having any kind of a comprehensive solution. The Fair Share Amendment hasn't done exactly what we thought it would do. The Student Success Act really has been focused on some of the gateway cities. And I think there is a sense right now that, okay, the Student Success Act has finally been implemented, and now it's time to look at the other communities. I think it's going to be a slow roll for the same reason why I said, why can't you get this together? You have a majority. I think the state is going to say, but whatever solution we have has to support 75% or 90% of the districts in the state. That's a lot different than trying to pinpoint targeted assistance to a few districts. So I think that's the reality.
Michelle and Rich, what do you guys know about, do you have any more insight? This is all about Hampton this year, which is new for us. Do you have any insight? Hampton, I feel like, hasn't given us a firm number, although some people have mumbled 450, which would, by the way, everything John mentioned is only like $1.4 million. And so that wouldn't bridge the gap if Hampden really does come in and says they're only going to do 450. Hampden would have to come up with 662 and to match Wilbraham's 1.5 and then we'd have like everything on John's list or come up with something else to swap in. I didn't like John's list at all. I didn't like anything on his list. So, I don't know.
Yeah, I think the number that we were given the other night, I think that's where they're at. I don't have any additional information. I think it was mentioned like 465, but I'm guessing it's under 500 or 500 or less.
I think 465 is the increase in that over last year.
Yeah. Yes.
So that I think sets a tone for our discussion, because even if we moved on everything here, there still would be a huge gap. So then that raises the question as to whether it's worthwhile to move on anything at this point.
Well, all right. So I think we can all agree that these cuts are devastating to our students.
Yeah.
Looking at how horrible these cuts are, I do have to say thank you to John, because they could have been a lot worse. And I see the careful, painful, Sophie's choice decisions that you had to put this list together. If you remember the list from last year, was just like destroying so much. And this is as well, but I gotta say, I do really appreciate the time and effort, and that it's not as devastating. I thought we were gonna see mass layoffs and in a lot more horrible way. So thank you, John, for that. It could have been a lot worse. The problem is that we don't have an exact number. We don't know exactly how much Wilbraham and how much Hampden are going to give, though I think what Michelle was maybe implying is that the number that we were given could very well be the number. And if that is so, then it's going to make the cuts even more, because Wilbraham won't be able to give as much as they give because of that 79-21 split that we have to stay true to because of the population size. We do have, okay, again, this is just, we do have some E&D, and we have all these cuts. And to something that Mike was just saying, but we really don't know how bad it is yet. So I think when I was going through everything, and especially like ICP and moving the 8th graders over and how hard that was and how much we worked at it, I mean, I committed my own son to the program to show people that I believed in it and you know, put my money where my big mouth is. And to see that go away, I mean, I'm getting calls from students. Hello, Amber. She's very interested in joining that. She's watching today to see what's going to come out of that. And to be able to say like, okay, it's not going to happen. It's not something I want to do, but it might be something we have to do. So in a line with what Dr. Terabasi said, maybe what we should do is basically let's put this list to John and say, okay, listen, these are all acceptably unacceptable? Is that such a way of saying it? So the maybe least disgustingly horrible out of all the things that you could have put on this. So maybe we just say, put it in the formula, plug everything in. I would also say, plug all of E&D in, like just put everything on the table. So, and then let's really push on Hampden and Wilbraham to give us their final numbers. And I think, unfortunately, as we've already discussed and Mike had said as well, that it is going to rely, Hampden is going to be the decider on this because they have an exceptionally tight budget cycle this year. There's a lot of amazing things happening in Hampden and things that have to happen, and unfortunately it's really straining the town, and it will strain us. So if that's okay with everybody, let's just instruct the superintendent and Doug, of course, the assistant superintendent, to put everything on the table, do what you have to do, but let's wait until we get some strong indication, because I think on Monday we're meeting. But let's make these public, that these are the cuts that unfortunately are going to have to happen, and it looks like pretty much all of them are going to have to happen, plus more.
Question on the math. If Hampden gives $400 and some odd thousand more, why is Wilbraham limited to 700, which isn't 4-to-1 ratio?
You knew someone was going to ask the question.
Doug spent 3 hours trying to convince me of this yesterday, so I'm going to let him take the answer.
I'll see what I can do. So the thing that happens, I think the simplest way to describe it is you know, so when we go to reduce the budget, if we need to reduce Hampden's assessment by $1, that reduces Wilbraham's, by virtue of the regional agreement, $4. So that's why it has an outsized effect. So to reduce, you know, Hampden's assessment by $500,000 means roughly $2 million worth of Wilbraham's assessment is reduced. Now, they may have the capacity to pay much more than what's on the assessment, but that's because of because of the regional agreement, they're compelled to pay that. So that's And it is outsized in some respects, the impact because of that difference. You know, regional schools work very, very well if all the communities have roughly the same size and same number of students, and so their proportion of the assessment is relatively the same because, you know, the up or down of a given year for one town kind of evenly is absorbable by the others. What happens in our circumstance with one smaller community, one larger community, is that when the smaller community is having a more significant limitation on its resources, it has this, you know, large multiplier effect in the budget because of that difference in how they're apportioning those costs. That sort of 4 to 1 kind of thing.
Can I add one other thing that's even exacerbating it this year?
Right.
Which is we're having a population shift back to Hamden, which means even if we kept the budget at 0 increase, Hamden would have to come up with an increase because of they have now are responsible for a larger portion of it.
I think it might be a good time for Hamden Wilbraham to bring up again the discussion about adjusting the formula. When Wilbraham was getting the screws put to them because Hamden's enrollment was dropping, they were trying to propose that instead of it changing every year, that there be a 5-year average to determine it, so that if any one town's percentage of students changed in a given year, it would taper the impact of that in their budgeting, make it more palatable for the towns. And Wilbraham proposed it, Hamden was against it, but maybe Hamden will be more in favor of it now, given what happened this year. I don't know.
I'll just point out that it is in the draft regional agreement that we keep bringing forward. You know, last communication I received from that is that the town of Wilbraham has authorized its attorney to speak with the school committee's attorney to try to deal with the hang-up we have right now around language about the current middle school.
So the 5-year average is in there?
I think it's 3-year average.
3-year average?
Yeah, but same concept.
And it has to be voted on each year. It's not something that is just decided each year at town hall, correct? Right?
At town meeting.
At town meeting, yeah, it has to be. I'm sorry, that's what I meant. At town meeting, it has to be brought up.
So I don't know if we want to just go back and talk about some of these things. I think maybe the committee might be okay having implemented now, like section 1. Like, that's the fee increases.
Do you think we need
we could do section 1 with 200,000 from E&D?
So can I just...
Instead of 100,000?
Can I just ask a quick question? So your ask is saying, first, we're not voting on anything tonight. This is just a discussion, just to be very clear. I guess what I just want to better understand is that you're saying that you want us to basically take no action and not work through anything and wait until Monday, until we have our next meeting? Is that what you're asking?
Well, no, not on Monday, at our next meeting. Like, we have these, let them sink in. Let us talk to our constituents about them. But let's just put them into the toolbox for John. Let's say, okay, John, everything here, depending on what numbers come in, let's say it comes in at the worst number that we think it is, or maybe something else comes in different and we make up some money and the state gives us more money or what, like all this, let the chips where they fall, but let all these be in that toolbox, so to speak. And then if we have to, when the budget comes forth, this is the budget that is presented to the school committee, then if we have to, we can maybe pick and choose between them. But I do think we need, we have our own opinions, but we do need to talk to our constituents about this as well, right?
We're all sitting here thinking that none of this is
Exactly.
very impactful, and there's not many positive things that you can find in this list, so I can't imagine that anybody would find joy in anything that was presented tonight. So, I would imagine that we don't have to wait to hear that from people, because I'm sure there's disappointment across all of the screens everywhere.
Yeah, but if we're going to pick and choose on which ones that we want to, we're going to, okay, we can do this one now, we can do this one.
I don't know that it's binding.
Okay.
No, it's not listed as a vote, so it's just for direction because I don't know what happened here.
But they do need to put together a budget for the budget hearing next week.
That's what we have to do, right.
And I'm thinking that some of these, I mean, we're running into this problem every year. This is not a new conversation that we're having. You know, we're having a shortfall. We're trying to, you know, use money from E&D to sustain our operating budget. It's not sustainable. So there are things in here, you know, for instance, 1A, athletic, the 5% athletic fee increase. That's something that we can do and can be implemented. And that something like that should be done because, you know, our fees with transportation and the stipends and whatnot are increasing, so our fees also need to follow suit. So that, I mean, in my opinion, that is something that we could certainly look at. So there are certain items in there that I think that are not detrimental to our students. And I know that if, for instance, there was an issue with the cost of things, and I know there's resources available for students that do need for families that need assistance with payment for these items.
But for example, if we want to get into that one, why 5%? Why not 2.5%? Why not 10? Why not 15? Why not 20?
We originally started this at, I mean, let me first say, anything is going to have a level of arbitrariness to it. We originally started this at 7% with the idea that we wanted to yield $10,000. And then when we looked at it more closely, we realized we could probably net the $15,000 and the $10,000 with 5%. So we peeled it back to that. So really, that's the number we were looking for with that one.
Why was it 10,000? Okay.
I was going to say, as a school committee member, you know, I can't say yay or nay on these. It seems to me that, you know, the principals, John, you know, the kids, they're the ones that live with it. So if we're having, you know, got in our heads or something happened to something, I would think it would be whatever you think is the least damaging to the school. If we had to do all of them, there's no other choice. We have to do all of them. But that's still going to leave a shortfall. The shortfalls.
The thing, well, and that is how we did it. You know, we tried to put together the list that was going to have the least impact on students and staff. But the problem is we don't know what number we're trying to cut to. You know, our choices would be different, I think, if you said, okay, get us to $1 million, or get us to $750,000. You know, that's the part that makes, you know, the unknowns of this so hard to deal with. I mean, I guess the one thing I hope for is whatever we end up at might get slightly better through the state process. You know, typically the House and the Senate try to add a little bit to where the governor started from. So I think, you know, we might get a little bit of relief there, but at that point our budget will already be passed. And so then the question will be, can we prioritize what we would bring back if we got more funding?
Just if my math is correct, if anyone, let's say if Hampden cannot exceed 460, is the Wilbraham part the maximum that would be 1.73 million? No?
Lower.
It's actually lower than that.
Way lower than that with the width.
So if the increase, so let me put it this way to you. If the increase in Hampden is $475,000.
All right, I thought it was 460 or 475.
I just used, I picked a number in between.
You don't know.
Okay.
But just because I know this one off the top of my head. But if it's 475, the increase to the Wilbraham assessment is right around 800,000. But the cuts to make that happen are 2.34 million.
But why did both towns were the max last year, and with Sean's number, it's 4 something for Hampton. Why isn't it 1.6 for Wilbraham?
So part of it is, so for example, and this gets back to the point that the superintendent made is, if you made, let's say our budget was 0% higher, so it's the same number as this year, Hampden would pay 2% more, which is like $180,000, and Wilbraham would pay about 1% less. So 1% of 32 million is $300-something thousand. And that's keeping things level. So there's a shift of who owns the assessment toward Hampden.
you know, all for that little tiny.
No, so I'm doing it all in one calculation, but what he's saying is it's two calculations. The first one was we have to adjust for the population shift, and then when that money there, then the increase from Hamden is less than the 460. The 460 includes their part for the population shift. Okay, that's
The population shift of only a few tenths of a percent is that much there.
Right. I mean, there are some other factors in that.
$5 million budget.
There's a few other things that are in that what's called minimum local contribution for the town of Hampton. It's largely student driven, but it's not exclusively that.
I mean, these cuts, we all have our own personal opinions, right? So like, Sean is really upset about the career pathway. I'm really upset that you put the strings in there. I know you knew I was going to be.
I'm upset about every single line item, Rich, as I'm sure.
No, I'm upset about all of them. We all have things that impact us the most. And then what really scares me is that even all of this, I don't think is good, unless Hamden is going to have to do a 2.5 override this year. Or like twice these cuts will have to be implemented. And so then it'll come to us it's going to put us as a school committee in a really bad predicament, because we either dig our heels in and let it go to town meeting with a number that we know that the town, administrators are not going to support, and it might get voted down and start that whole process, or do we accept, do we accept really horrible cuts to the school, really the gutting of the school district, to make the number.
Right, that's what I'm saying. So these cuts might not be enough. They might be half as much as what we need, right?
I know they're not enough, and you're absolutely correct. They're at least $1 million short from where things are now.
It all depends on where Hamden ends up. We don't know where Hamden is. Can I just say one thing before I
we asked the
Right.
select board on Monday, Tuesday, and
I just want to say to you, Sean, and to you, Michael, I hope you know I didn't put those cuts in there to irritate you. They're
no,
just...
No, 100%. No,
okay.
No, John. John, you did as thoughtful and kind a way of doing such a horrible thing, I think you did.
The other thing I want to say is, what I heard, and what I hope for is... Again, I don't consider this to be an official position of anybody in Hamden, because it was kind of a conversational comment that was made when we were down there. What I heard was that we were planning on 450 or up to 500,000. So hopefully we can meet somewhere in the middle. At that time, they were looking at $1 million assessment increase. So this may be very optimistic, but I hope somewhere between the 450 and the $1 million, we could land. That's the conversation I think we need to have on Monday. Say like, look, if we put every one of these in here, we can bring your assessment down from $1 million to $700,000. Can that do it? If it can't do it, you need to tell us what it is, because we'll have to go back and find some more cuts. And every cut you make is going to be multiplied by 4, because it has to be matched by a cut on the assessment to Wilbraham.
I agree with Sean in that, we have our packet saying to the town of Hampton that, look, here's what's going to have to happen. We don't really sit there and make decisions until after we get those numbers, the closer numbers. And you can even have more things in here, like, 20 teachers have to go if we don't, we're short by another $1 million. In other words, this is decimating the school district. And you tell them, this is what's going to happen. You guys make a decision into what money we can get with the 4 times for Wilbraham, and this is how we decimate the system. And it's kind of a bargain for Hampton. Every dollar they spend, they get 4 times as much from Wilbraham to fund it.
Sorry, I'm just going to keep adding to the list. I know other members don't want to discuss it. But another item that I think is good use, I know, Mike, you had, is 3A about the boiler. So this money would be coming from the Minnechaug Capital Stabilization Fund. And so this seems like this is what this account is for. So I would imagine that it's used for building repairs. So, you know, taking the $160,000 from there, it's something that we plan for. We spent countless hours discussing putting money aside to the Minnechaug Stabilization Fund so we can be, you know, be able to take care of these repairs. So to me, it seems something that would be responsible. It's avoiding a spike in the taxes because we're not assessing the towns for it and we're taking care of it. And then it also prevents us from being in an emergency situation. We already have one that's in failure, correct? So if this one goes down, it would be an emergency. So what happens if the second boiler fails?
I hope it fails after Tuesday when it's 70 degrees outside.
But if it does,
If it happens tonight, we're canceling school tomorrow. Well, we might do that anyways because of the ice storm. Who knows? That's not a promise. But, you know.
I believe that's a binding statement.
But if you look at it, the stabilization,
if we lost.
Yes.
the stabilization fund, we had all the representatives sitting around the table. And I remember I asked everyone, what is the purpose of the stabilization fund? And everyone I think was here. And they had said, the stabilization fund is what you would use to, you know, do the RFPs, you spend that money to tell us how much it's going to cost to fix something. It's not supposed to be used to actually fix something. It's supposed to be there for when we have big projects, when something needs to get done. That's what they said. That's what the town said about the money that they give us to put into that budget. So for us to change that, I mean, as long as the towns go along with that, because then now we're not going to have that money potentially to do these plans, to ask for the projects such as repaving, or if that happens, or whatever.
Is that how we use the account? Do we use it for RFPs and for feasibility studies?
We haven't used it yet. So over the course, to my understanding, it got established when this building was new.
Which was how many years ago? Does anyone know?
And so it was 2012, so
Right.
that's 13 years ago.
Yeah.
And I think, I'm not sure we funded every single year, but about 50,000 is what's been put away. And I don't know if it's been used for anything, but there's about $450, or a little more than $450,000 in the account. So, that's 9 years out of the, 13? So either we've used some money, or there were 4 years we didn't fund it. One of those two. So
I
We
can
used
tell you.
money before you guys wanted us.
could be.
You used,
For a lot of studies on how to do stuff and the
Right.
class.
right, but we did that.
So I completely agree with you that it is it is along with the intents of the account that we could use it for a $160,000 repair job. What I was pointing out is that what I'm under the impression of right now is we're having a major operating expense funding gap. I've not had pushback from the towns on that boiler as a capital expense. Although we really haven't heard anything from Hamden on it. So perhaps you know more, maybe Hamden is not. And once again, the towns tend to use free cash for the capital. So it's not, if we do that, it's not going to mobilize more money for the towns to put into our operating assessment. Unless the towns are supplementing the money they're using for operating assessment from their free cash, which I know Wilbraham would never do. I don't know about Hamden.
I guess my concern is, we have this list of capital items that, just the other night we discussed removing some of the items and pushing them off to another year. So we have a habit of doing that, and that seems to be part of our practice annually, to just take items off and push them off, and then we end up in, more emergent situations.
I agree with you, and along that lines, right, one big item that we took off the list that we really need is the skid steer. So like we could say, hey, you know what, we're going to do the boiler for Minnechaug stabilization and put the skid steer back on the list. They're still ahead because the skid steer is less expensive than the boiler, right? It was only like 80,000, 70,000, if I remember right. You pulled it off the list now, so it's not. At least you pulled it off the list with the big numbers on it. So that might be a good strategy if we want to get the, you know, I think, I wouldn't want to use the stabilization fund for a skid steer, but I think that, you know, if we wanted to make that move, pull the 160 off and do that, but we'll have to communicate with the respective capitals boards. Do you like that?
You know, I don't know if this may make no sense whatsoever, so I apologize. I've been up a lot trying to get this thing done. But I wonder if part of it could be the negotiation with the towns of, like, you're right, they have traditionally used free cash from this. We could put it in the assessment now and say, look, you know you're going to have $31,000 worth of free cash in the fall, right? You know you're going to have $128,000 worth of free cash in the fall. Don't you think you can approve this?
They'll say, well, we won't know until it's been certified.
That is true, but when has it been known to be less than that?
Yeah. I mean, it's, you know, it's...
Sounds to me like, absent additional money from the state and the two towns, there are no good decisions to be made. We are going to impact the quality of education for the children in our charge. And that message, we've been talking money, money, money. We need to talk about the kids, what they need, and what they deserve to have. Now, I know that's not going to solve any problem, but these two communities have to be aware of the fact that we can't continue to operate. And as the number of people who showed up at the last 2 months school committee meeting say, I came here because of the quality of the education. Well, the quality of education is slipping, and it's going to slip even faster. Because even if we make all of those cuts, we don't have enough money. This is like worse than being between a rock and a hard place. There are no good decisions to be made here. And that message has got to be pounded home to the citizens of both of these communities. Do you want to have a second-rate school system, or do you want to have a first-rate school system? And, you know, you get what you pay for.
So,
I would say, if we can jump in here, of anything that I'd want to say, like, let's pick what not to put on this list, it would have to come out of the 10th section. Right? Because we're talking, that's a paraprofessional, reduce the school sections, reduce the middle school strings and school nurses. I would have to pick something from here. And you all know what I think about many other things on the other list. But I'm sorry, ICP at $250,000, it's just, it's too juicy of an apple not to pick it, unfortunately. And that kills me. But in all seriousness, I think that the most devastating is taking away educators, nurses, whatever, from our students. And yeah, I'm sorry, that's what I meant. Yeah, you said and paras, did I not say paras? I said nurse. All right, it's nurses, paras, teachers, and then the strings and things is one of the greatest programs, and I believe anything band music is so great for a child's brain development is having that, and I just can't. I think if we have to pick something not, it would have to come out of 10. That's my personal opinion.
I just want to say, Aaron, thank you for putting those up there. I think what his intention was to not put those up there.
Oh, no.
yes. Yes, don't put 10. So in terms of numbers, like, what are my hopes and dreams from the towns? My hopes and dreams is that Hamden gets up to what John said, somewhere between 780, 790. I think Wilbraham, in response to that, might be in a position to approach a $2 million increase, but slightly under it. And then that would give us about an $800,000 to $1 million gap to close. I mean, you know, if the towns wanted to hear, gee whiz, what I wanted to shoot for, but I mean, Hamden's pretty far away, so I have a lot of trepidation about the upcoming meeting with Hamden Advisory. So I don't know if we want to let her stick in there on the list, right? So that the already vacant coach position, you know, I mean, if we start talking about, like, let's say if we only had to bridge an $800,000 gap, right? Well, we've got $93,000 from an already vacant coach position. We can put a couple $100,000 from E&D, right? You know, the items from number 1, right? And then ICP, if we do, and I'm not saying we should, but if John pulls all the 8th graders back to the 8th grade, you know, that's 206, you know, that's, what was that, 267? But then I think we have to factor in that I really think he should be then looking to hire another middle school teacher because of the overcrowding there.
Yeah, that's the other thing, 7D we should not put on the list. But again,
Yeah.
this is gonna be moot if we have to do all of these plus all of E&D and still be upside down, right? But if I had to
7A
protect anything, I would protect 7D and I would protect 10.
10, yeah. Yeah.
I'm sorry, when I was originally doing that, I had that middle school teacher was a 10, but it's actually a 7. So it's 7D and all of 10.
So
Is
Aaron,
what I would fight really hard not to cut.
Aaron, could you put in everything except 7D and 10 and see where that leaves us?
Can you elaborate on 7A, please?
Everything but 7.
7D and all of 10.
Sure. Facilities and maintenance. I think the simplest way to say that is we think we can do, we have a position that's open, we have another position that's coming open. We think we can do some reorganization of duties and restructuring of responsibilities that may allow us to net a $75,000 savings there by not refilling every position that is going to be vacant.
So my rough numbers is that we would cut the number down to about 1.239 million.
So how does that impact the district? Because I'm thinking of their workload, and
Yep.
I know there's, you know, delineation of responsibilities, and I know we have people that are in, like, specialty roles.
Yep. I would ask Doug if he can speak to that. I know you're trying to help, but I can help with that. The question about how you would envision restructuring within facilities to go.
And just I'm hearing about the impact of reducing the overall department and just talking about when you restructure, talking about the delineation of responsibilities.
Yeah, so the open position is a night supervisor who provides support, did a lot of snow removal work, but also did a lot of support for the custodians in the evening because the director and assistant director are not working in that evening shift time frame. So they provide support to those people, and so I think what would probably happen is that, you know, assistant director would have to take on some of those roles, and so therefore they might have to shift their work schedule to be able to be available both during the day and in the evening to some extent. So they might have a noon to 8 schedule instead of a, you know, 7 to 3 or 7 to 4, you know, that kind of thing. That's just sort of as far as aligning their time of the day with the people that they would need to be working with. I haven't had this conversation with the folks in the department, so, you know, there's a lot more that we'd have to think about. Are there ways we can, you know, shift burden off of them and, you know, certain tasks that are, you know, tedious and time consuming, you know, around, you know, like time clock review and stuff like that. I mean, that stuff needs to happen, and it's important, and it allows, you know, a manager to know what's happening with their staff, and relative to managing a project, you know, directing work, that kind of thing, it's not as important. So, you know, there's a real review of all the tasks that they need to do and which ones can be, you know, shifted or made more efficient, I think. And it's going to be really challenging, because I think the reason we added a night supervisor was, you know, we felt like having someone here in that, you know, in that night shift, being able to provide support to those custodial staff that are here, because the head custodians aren't there, so they're providing that kind of head custodian support to direct them and do, you know, the person that's, you know, was in that role was able to do a tremendous amount of support work in this time of year around the snow removal and to the district's benefit. We've shifted that to some other people for this year, which has incurred costs for, you know, overtime and that kind of thing. So we haven't saved, you know, as much as you might imagine by having an open position because of that. But we have to think about, like, all right, well, what about those kind of responsibilities? Can we keep that you know, structured within the maintenance staff and the custodial staff to kind of keep doing that, or not? Is that too great a burden? We have to see sort of how that's you know, played out for those people that have covered that this winter. So there's a lot of those kind of pieces we got to think through a little bit and get feedback on. And you know, I think there's, like I said, just, you know, operation of the office and those tasks, are there ways to support them that can reduce burden on the sort of administrators of the you know, sort of least valuable or least productive aspects of it. I don't know that there's that much there, but that's, you know, so that's a challenge. And, you know, less is less. So there's some stuff that just won't get as much of it done because we'll have fewer people to do it.
That's what I'm wondering. I'm wondering about the strain on the district.
Yeah, I think there's, you know, the reality is that, you know, you have fewer people to do the work, and, you know, we have a number of buildings that are showing their age, and so the amount of stuff we can do to, you know, maintain and keep the buildings in good working order will be a little more limited with fewer people. You know, how profoundly that will impact us is a little hard to judge at the moment. You know, in the time we've not had a night supervisor, as it felt to me, of course, I sit very removed from that. You know, I might have you know, if we had a conversation with head custodians or night custodians, they might say, oh, it's been really a hassle to not have that person supporting and taking care of these odds and ends and that kind of thing. So it's you know, there's definitely some investigation we're going to need to do and thinking through how we approach that and how we structure it to make it work.
So here you can see the effect if you did everything except section 10 and 7D. I will point out, if you could go down to the bottom, Aaron, please. I would point out that 11A is now inflated because you are not removing as many positions, which means you're not saving as much benefit costs. So I would say can't count on the 45,000 there. Maybe you can count on, what, 20,000?
Yeah. Yes, maybe 25.
Okay, don't change that though, Aaron. So, but yeah, so just say that you're going to knock down 25, which means you'll knock down, say, 5,000 or add 5,000 more to, this is a reduction, so reduce the reduction. You'd save $261,000 for Hamden, and the rest of it would go to, don't change it though, Aaron, just, this is just, people have to think. So that's where you would end up, a little bit less than that, because 11A will not yield as much now.
So Doug, all right, so let's say we're at a 1.2 gap. What are the contributions, what are the increases for Wilbraham and Camden for us to have a 1.2 gap? I mean, you know what I mean. So if we did not straight numbers, right?
Well, let me do a little math. So a reduction of 1.284 and change, those are the reductions for those two. And so we take the current increases, so, find the right one.
About 703, 117, because I took off 5,000 from that number there. So it would be about, Hampton would have to come up with $703,000.
Actually, it's a, so I have 964, 991 minus two, I should do 260, yeah, like 703. Is about right. And then,
Once you give us this figure, we will take like a 5-minute break.
that makes the Wilbraham increase like 1.65. I mean, that's a little rough, but. 703 or so, 704.
I have 1.612, so just because we took off 20 because of the section 11A.
Right. 2,649,985 minus. What do you have, Sean?
I had 1.612476.
I think it's 652.
1.652 is what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I'm sorry, you're right. You're correct. I took the 20 out the wrong way.
Okay, let's break for 5 minutes.
No, we went to the $200,000 kids are staying over.
Hey, that's because we're supposed to do so based on these numbers, right? So you're saying that Camden comes up with 460 or 475, then Wilbraham should only put in another 800,000. So it's basically out of the 1.6 that we have here, that 200,000 is half of what Wilbraham will be able to do. $25,500 and then 20 is what someone said. The actual hours.
So it's 701.44 and 165.2.
Hang on, just give me those numbers again.
Yeah.
Say it again, please.
701.44. Yeah, 201.
Get it
Yes,
down.
it's not.
No, I was checking.
Yes. I don't think it's
Really, can you work for yourself? I don't know if he's a delegate.
Yeah, he was, and most of the residents are coming for days, which you can't do. You're not able to. So they work, that's why the health center and the chair, whatever they call it now, they're big health centers.
Yes, it's actually huge, and that part of the state, I mean, that's like, rural hospitals out there, I've heard of, you go to a lot of towns, they provide services, not just for the citizens. That's nice to be there with one time.
Yeah.
And I know they need to have competition that has to government to have democracy.
Yeah. Well, good luck. Good to meet you.
Good to meet you too. I hope we can help.
Yes.
It doesn't have to
Sorry, I
follow
thought you
one
were.
number. But not a Minnechaug.
No, what I was saying, Sean, is we're doing that. I don't see why we're so aligned. But just for future, we know that. But we see some options.
If we change the agreement to say, these aren't the maximums, these are the minimums. You cannot give less than whatever the population is, you know what I mean? So that way, so if someone wants to give more, or town wants to give more, they can give more. And you're sure, I know we've always followed that, you're sure the language isn't like, no more than?
Well, I don't think anything comes this. What you have to do is do a one-year modification. You cannot find it every, one-time goal. More than
The other suggestion that came up, what if Wilbraham lent or gave Hampton the $200,000 so they could put it on? You know what I mean? Oh, so there is a way, maybe, you give the town can give us, no, the town can give the district a gift. One time gift. Doug's gonna look at it. Happy birthday. That's what they'll say. The other thing I'm saying is maybe or something like that, some way of. We were one time, at one time. We go back in time, and if Hampton didn't sue us, then we'd have all this extra money.
Oh, we're not, sorry. Oh, because of the storm. Because of the storm. Okay. Oh, it's already after that.
The most level stuff. Yeah. We should talk. Pretty nice.
So we're really just interested in hearing about the collaborative and policy. And then reviewing the. No, not tonight.
Well, there's nothing from the collaborative. There wasn't a quorum, so we didn't have a meeting. There you go.
We're back Okay, so let's wrap this up. So, do you have anything that you want to?
So I guess.
So we're officially back in session, everyone? We're back in session.
So I guess my question, and this is just a sense because it's not a vote, is this your direction to me and Doug at this point? Should we reduce the budget by this amount and then take that to advisory on Monday?
No, I want to take this budget to advisory on Monday. I want to take this, all right? Because this is our budget, and let them tell us that they can't give it to us, and then we can make the adjustments from there. But let's go with this budget.
I second that. I agree.
So then when they say that we have X amount of dollars, then then we say we're going to schedule another meeting?
But they haven't told us what that is. So
I
until they
understand.
tell us, then we're going to have to adjust. But until then, let's go with our full budget.
Try to get them to up the money because.
I understand that portion, but then I'm asking about this list.
So I think we should initially start with the level service budget, because that's what we always do. Hear from them. Okay? And then be prepared to present the modified budget. But before the modified budget, present the list of gutting cuts. Say, okay, we hear what you're saying, okay? We went through and we've got a number of cuts that are going to devastate the students, but here's a list of cuts, and they get us to this. No.
I agree.
And then hear what the response is to that. Because I have a feeling that even after the devastating, you know what I mean? I don't think we should start with this because I think they need to hear where we're starting, and then these devastating cuts gets us to here.
The devastating cuts bring the roughly $1 million to 701,444. And I think we should go there, let them explain to us, and then we can show them these cuts proposed, and then say not including this line and 7D and 10, it would bring you down to 703. And if they say, well, we're not going to go above 500, then we have to find another $1.2 million.
That's all I was asking. I was asking if we were also preparing to share the list. That was my only ask.
Oh, I'm sorry, I missed that. I'm sorry.
No, I understood about, we're going to present the same budget we presented to everybody else. I was asking simply about the list.
I think we
I
should
apologize.
just share the list that we included in here. Leave off 10 and leave off 7.
Let's leave 10 and 7D there and just tell them that we don't want to do those. Like, if we have to, like, those are like, we really don't want to do any of these, but we really don't want to do those.
I just want to simplify it for them, Sean.
It's not a simple question, Mike. This is a real complicated thing. I mean.
No, but we just need to say, okay, here's a modified budget after this list of cuts, and if it won't be good, it probably won't be good enough, and then the response is, okay, we're going to have to go back to the committee, and we're going to have to work on more cuts.
If we add 7D, can you add 7D and all of 10 to this to see if we make all of the cuts, what is the...
You already told us it's 1.4.
No, for each town. Did you do that as well? Did you break down for each town, John?
I have the number for
In the email, I think it's probably the memo, the cover sheet to the memo. It's got some rounding to basically what it is.
But Sean, maybe they'll be in a position to do the 700, and then we don't have to bring up 70. And maybe John will find other cuts to make that are more palatable to the committee than 10 and 70.
No, but what I'm saying is I'd just like to go to them and say, if it's the whole list, it's this. If we just save a couple things on it, it's this. But I think what's going to happen is that it's going to be everything on this list, plus all of E&D, and then we're all going to have to give a pint of blood a week for the rest of the year.
It's in paragraph 3 of the memo.
It's like, start, ideal, and they'll start here, and hopefully you meet someplace somewhere. But I agree with Sean again, just the whole thing, that would be ideal, and then after that, we have to sit there. The things that we would first try to keep as much as possible would be the 7, 8, and 10. But to start with, it's all on the table.
Great, so John and Doug, do you have any questions for us?
I only have one question. It's a timing one. I'm trying to think. What do we have for scheduled meetings before the public hearing on the budget?
Monday, the unit advisory at 6 o'clock.
And then,
And Thursday, our public hearing.
so should we try to get a meeting on the books in the interim in case you said there's a possibility that they're going to come back with a response that we have to say, well, we have to go back to the committee then. That would mean we need to have a meeting scheduled for either Tuesday or Wednesday so you can give us further direction so that we can finalize the budget to have for the public hearing on Thursday.
Wait, the public hearing is on the 19th, correct?
No, that's the vote.
The public hearing is when? All right, I don't have anything on my
So,
calendar.
and that's the answer to both questions. You have the public hearing, and then that gives the community time to give feedback on the budget, and then the vote at the next meeting.
The public hearing is on what day?
Next Thursday.
March 12th.
My thought to prepare for the public hearing is to present the level service budget, and if at that point it doesn't appear that the towns can support the level service budget, present a budget with a list of cuts, and then the school committee, we can discuss it and vote on it.
I guess that's the point. You could do it that way. You could do a public hearing on any budget, and then after that meeting, you could give further direction on what you want us to prepare for you to vote on.
What I would suggest, though, is if you want feedback from the public about the kinds of reductions you're going to make, then getting that information to them in time to process it and give you comment about those. Because they may come in and say, we're fine with 7D, but we're not okay with 2A. I don't know. I'm just randomly. So I think that if you want to get feedback from the larger
That's what I was
population,
saying.
they'll need to have something before the meeting to respond to. Because if you go to level services, they're going to go, yeah, that's great to me. But the difference between that and what towns can fund could be quite large, and therefore the cut's quite severe, and that'll be hard to get their feedback and then make any adjustment from that feedback if you do it later.
This document is not...
For the public hearing, prepare the cut budget for the public hearing with the list of cuts.
Yeah, I think to the superintendent's point is that if you schedule a meeting on Tuesday, because we'll have heard from Hamden directly, the advisory on Monday, Tuesday is the 10th. If you had a meeting... Right.
Is that the awards night?
That's the awards night.
Okay, Wednesday.
Well, I just think that what gives the community opportunity to sort of read the material before the meeting on Thursday, but there's also, you could direct the finance committee to do that direction for the superintendent myself, or we could schedule at a time other than 6:30 p.m. A public meeting can be any time that's posted. So it could be, Wednesday at noon. That gives time for us to sort of put a polish to it for at least, by Wednesday evening, and then they have, Wednesday night and Thursday to look it over for you. I'm not suggesting necessarily noon on Wednesday, but I'm just saying you have some more flexibility than just having an evening meeting.
Will it require a vote? We have to vote or not?
No, I think it's kind of like tonight. It can be direction about what you think is appropriate by consensus as far as direction to the superintendent myself. You could vote if you wanted to, but again, it's going to be a direction. We're going to put that direction, whether it's formal vote or consensus, to the tech.
Could I ask the committee, would the committee be confident if the subcommittee met 3 rather than all 7 meet on Wednesday to make the decision based on the conversation?
I'm on call Wednesday, so I can't do anything.
So you can't do it? Well, 2 of us would be a quorum.
Well, we could think about Tuesday as well, because the problem with Tuesday is there's an evening conflict, but if it could be earlier in the day, then Tuesday could work.
Can't be early on the day on Tuesday, I just can't.
I do like 5:30, 6 a.m. on Tuesday.
6 a.m.?
Even before surgery.
I could do 4 a.m. on Thursday. And, but then
Okay, whatever.
But then I'd have to leave by 5 a.m.
Okay.
So another option, just to,
Virtual lunch meeting on Tuesday?
No,
Okay, cool.
I don't get lunch.
I mean, I think we know what we need to know, that the budget with this list of cuts is the best possible situation getting through, and there's going to need to be more cuts on that.
Well, it depends what Hamden says.
But maybe, as I was saying, you could have, some districts have the public hearing and the vote on the budget at the same meeting. You could have the public hearing and then further discussion about the budget at the same meeting. Could put, if, you know, they don't say, oh no, actually we can do $1 million, and we're at some version of those cuts, we could prepare that cut budget, and then if there's more needed, you could talk about that right after you conclude the public hearing. Just do it Thursday night.
Oh, so you're saying...
Wilbraham couldn't do $3 million, so even if Hamden came up with $1 million, Wilbraham couldn't do.
Well, all right, so you're saying that on the 12th, we can meet to discuss, have the hearing on the 19th, and then the vote on the 19th. Is that what you're saying?
I was actually saying you could have the hearing on the 12th.
Yep.
Then have a regular meeting on the 12th, immediately following, to make any further adjustments to the budget, and then vote on the budget the next week as you had planned to do.
Oh, okay.
We'll already be in session on the 12th, so we can just, after the hearing.
So we would present on the 12th the full budget, with the full budget, and then afterwards we would decide what cuts would need to be done.
Just have further discussion.
Okay.
I don't know what you mean by full budget.
This.
My thought was, let's say we think it's a reasonable scenario that there's going to be some cuts, probably look like whatever we had up there or some version of that. Bring that for the public hearing, because that puts the public on notice that you're looking at significant impacts to your budget.
No, we can present this and then say, and then here are the potential cuts that we're going to make, and we will get these out to our constituents as, you know, this week and next week, so that they can have some comment on it on Thursday. And if you could say, because I don't, this was not in our packet, correct? Because I did not see it.
Correct. That came through at about 6 o'clock today.
Okay. Can we get this either emailed to us or added to the packet?
It's not in the physical packet, we gave it to you, it's in the drive.
It's in the drive, sure.
I went through everything. Maybe I skipped over it. I didn't see
Sean,
it.
you might not have had a chance to see my email. I was working on that until just like minutes before the meeting.
Oh, all right. I was in another meeting, so yeah, I was looking at it this morning. All right, so then you added it after okay. So it's there. So I can download it and send it out to people. Put it on Facebook. Telegraph it.
Okay, we will continue. So we know that there was no update on the collaborative, as Lisa shared. We have no update on negotiations. We do have our next meeting scheduled for April 9th. And is it fair to say, Mike, that you have nothing to report on the corporation for LPVEC?
That is correct. Nothing to report.
Excellent. And we have nothing to report for the superintendent evaluation, so we'll move on to the consent agenda.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Questions or discussion? Okay. We'll do roll. Is Tim still on? Perfect. Okay, so we'll do.
Policy has still not met.
Oh, I apologize.
Yes. Yes.
Sorry for skipping. So we'll do roll call. Cheryl? Tim? Sean?
Aye.
Lisa?
Yes.
Rich?
Yes.
Mike?
Yep.
Myself, yes, so motion carries 7-0. So, sorry, Mike, for skipping you under subcommittee updates. So there's no policy meeting scheduled at this time?
We're working on scheduling.
Excellent. We do not have executive session this evening. We will resume our executive session sometime next week. So the budget hearing is next week on Thursday, March 12th at 6:30 in the IRC. And then also, just for those that may not be aware, we do have our budget roundtable with our legislators and representatives. That will be held on Tuesday, March 17th at 5 o'clock here in the IRC.
Wait, we're not going into executive session?
Correct. Just due to the inclement weather, we want to make sure that everyone gets home safely this evening. We have several meetings next week where we can tag it on to.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll do roll call to adjourn. Cheryl? Tim? Sean?
Aye.
Lisa?
Yes.
Rich?
Yes.
Mike?
Yep.
Myself, aye. We're adjourned 9:26 p.m. Thank you. Drive safely.